That limit deal was not loved by everyone. Democrats and Republicans voted against the measure in both the Senate today and then the House yesterday. Among the 95 House Democrats who decided not to support the plan were a handful of New Yorkers, including my next guest. He is Congressman Paul Tonko. He represents much of the Capital Region. Congressman, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you, Liz.
It's
good
great
to be with you and your
here.
listeners and viewers.
Thank you very much. So you voted no. Why?
The calculus for me was about the impact on jobs, the middle class, and seniors. I'm in the district routinely. Every weekend I'm home. I try to make as many events as I can along the 7 counties. And repeatedly, what we heard was the concern about the middle class being heard, the impact on Medicare and Social Security as it relates to seniors and their dignity and their ability to function and maintain soundness, and then the whole issue with jobs. And I just saw this version as an assault on the middle class.
Okay, let's break this up into 2 pieces. The first regarding jobs. I mean, there has been speculation that the president could have pushed for a deal that included, for example, the payroll tax, and he probably could have gotten that passed. If you looked at the numbers, you had 95 House Democrats voting no, 95, that's a split, and 95 voting yes. You probably would have lost some of the Republicans, but you might have picked up some Dems. Do you think that he actually could have pushed harder for a better plan?
You know, I think it's very difficult. When I watched this, I think the biggest concern I had was the impact that the Tea Party had within the Republican majority. And I think they're a minority, a vast minority within that conference. And I listened to some of my moderate Republican friends, and they said, you know, they had this undue influence. And it was almost like the tail wagging the dog. And, you know, if anywhere the message could have been sharpened and made more relevant and resonate better for my district, it would have been there.
Well,
to not let that extreme voice control their overall voice.
Yeah, well, the vice president called them terrorists. I mean, I don't know how much more extreme you get than that in terms of classifying a small group of people who are really holding the process hostage.
Well, this pell-mell attack on all government programs and agencies and, you know, the devaluation of government. My gosh, look at a program like Medicare. I have never had, in my years of representing this region, have never had such an outcry on an issue like when we heard about Medicare. We sent out a flyer, and we had at least, Liz, 85% of our return saying, you know, not only support Medicare, but, you know, make it stronger, and intense comments. So, you know, I think that there were things that people understand are very valuable. The safety of our bridges, but again, the investment in jobs. You know, China, India, Japan, Brazil, Germany are all investing in a clean energy innovation global race, and we're tying our hands behind our backs.
But hold on.
It's foolish.
I mean, the problem, right, from a political standpoint for the House Speaker is that these Tea Party folks, for example, the one Republican who voted no, which was Anne Marie Buerkle, right? And she said doesn't go far enough, which a number of Tea Partiers did, not far enough. Those are swing districts. In order to maintain the House, they need to maintain those marginal members, don't they? I mean, isn't that what this is all about?
But I think you can still go back to those swing districts and say, look, we gave the middle class a break by keeping Medicare now, for instance, is on the block.
Well,
Social Security is on the chopping block.
It's tied to military. Well, Medicare, I thought not Social Security. It's tied to military cuts. In other words, if one doesn't go, if one goes, the other goes when this bipartisan committee makes a decision.
But it's still on the block, you know, and you have an equal weighting. You have 6 Dems, 6 Republicans, 6 senators, 6 House members. So it's on the chopping block. And I think, you know, these are programs. I don't think that the Medicare outcry is any different in my district than it would be in Anne Marie Buerkle's.
No, probably
not. And I think,
not.
you know, and so there are these dynamics that I think were not paid attention to. And if it's all about just cutting, well, when the cuts finally settle in, you know, if they're cuts on student loans, if they're cuts on Medicare, if they're cuts on various programs for housing that people need, these are basic core ingredients for quality of life.
Then? Who gets the blame? Will it be the president?
The blame for what?
Well, the blame for this deal, which nobody likes. I mean, nobody likes this deal.
Well, unfortunately, a majority in the House did like it, or at least thought it was maybe in some ways better. Well, but look, I voted on 2 measures. One that was a straightforward vote. This did not have to be a crisis. It was a manufactured crisis. Is the concept of America needing, you know, to address the ceiling to pay her bills a real thing? Absolutely. Do I understand the intensity? Absolutely. The importance is significant. But it could have been a straightforward vote. We've done that since 1917.
Under Republican presidents and Democratic presidents.
This is the first time we attached
And
conditions.
it wasn't for new spending. It was so the country could actually, as you mentioned, pay bills that we had already racked up. But let me ask you this. If, in fact, it was a different situation and your vote was the deciding vote, would you have been able to vote the same if you knew it would send the country into default?
Look, the vote that I cast was based on what it's going to do to jobs. And by solving one crisis that was manufactured, we really created a deeper and more looming crisis with the jobs crisis. Everywhere I go, people are saying, what are we going to do about job creation? You solve the jobs crisis, you grow revenues, you reduce spending for necessary programs for the unemployed and those on the, living without economic ability to do so. That whole effort created now a deeper, worsening situation, and we're going to have to struggle somehow to produce jobs with less resources.
And how does that happen? I mean, so the question now is, what comes next for Congress? I mean, I know everybody retreats to their respective corners and sort of tries to ratchet down the pressure a little bit and ratchet down the tension. I mean, you have some serious, deep rifts in that Congress
Well,
right now.
I hope that we find some common denominators. Job creation has to be one of those.
Yeah, but
and
how?
If we could,
then job creation, everybody agrees on, right?
Right.
Everybody thinks jobs are fantastic, but it's that when you get down to how, then, for example, the payroll tax. Well, that was something that the Republicans said no, that actually would kill jobs. The president said no. Well, we need new revenue, and that didn't work.
it might just take this cycle of public discourse, dialogue that's developed in the communities across the country, and it may take the cycle of all the pain settling in and the academics becoming more and more aware, like the clear vision of what we're doing or not doing that will drive the bus here.
But that's scary,
And it is frightening.
isn't it? Because
It
you
is
can come
very
up to
frightening.
2012, and 2012 is actually, in other words, you're saying we're going to be playing out this fight all the way through the next campaign cycle. And right now, we're sitting in the summer, a whole year before that campaign cycle.
Well, as we're talking, I recall the many comments made by leadership in Washington by Republicans saying, we will not pass any measures that are brought by the president.
That's true.
So there's outright denial without even looking at the substance. And, we're in such tough times that our mantra cannot be, bring down a president. You can't bring down a president at the expense of building up a nation, and vice versa. I think you need to build up this nation, and somehow we're going to have to strike the chord here that will resonate with R's and D's and
But they think
and,
they
and House
won,
members
right?
and
The Tea
Senate.
Partiers think that they won simply by changing the dialogue or by controlling the dialogue and by holding you all hostage up until the last moment. And even if they voted yes on raising the debt ceiling when they all said that they weren't going to, now they're claiming victory. You have a Tea Party claiming victory, incredibly strong, and a president that comes out bruised.
Well, the victory is for the moment. And as you go forward, if people say that investments are cut, like R&D, research and development, education, higher ed, we're denying student assistance to graduate students? That's our think tank for, our cerebral power, our brain power for this country. Once that settles in, I think people will see what's happening. But to your point, it can't happen soon enough. And so we're going to have to take the message to the streets and let people know what's happening here.
The one maybe glimmer of hope that occurred in that chamber yesterday was when Gabby Giffords showed up. And I think that people saw her for a minute as unifying. You had Michelle Bachmann come over and say something to her. I mean, people who really just don't see eye to eye about anything welcomed her back. What was that like, that moment?
It was tremendously magical. It was like, I had heard moments before she stepped on the floor that she may be showing up. And I talked to Louise Slaughter about it. And I thought, today, with such a crowd in the chamber and so much hoopla and excitement, I said, do you think that could be the case? And within moments, I just turned around from where I was standing on the floor and looked at the doorway that I usually enter. And I saw Gabby walking up those steps with her Chief of Staff, Pia. And it was just, I can't tell you the emotion you felt. It was just powerful. And we've all hoped for that day when she came back on the floor. It was great to see her cast a vote, and she's such a strong and courageous soul that I think she brought to highlight the kind of, here's a person who cast that vote, regardless of how she cast, what vote she took.
She voted yes, actually, right?
But
she voted yes.
she did it because she's, really into searching through the issues. And I would hope that people took note of that this is not a game to bring down a president. It's not a game to not compromise. Our Constitution, which guides us, which is our framework, required compromise. And hopefully some lessons were taught just by who she is. Because it was a powerful statement and it was a powerful moment on the House floor.
And she has some connections to this area. I think that maybe some Capital Region folks feel connected to her because of her chief of staff, who is from Saratoga Springs. Right. Her husband was here recently for a fundraiser.
I saw Mark when he was here.
So it was a very moving moment, I agree, and it must have been amazing to have seen it.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson for all of us to understand that we have an opportunity to work hard, and to work together. And from this, I hope there's this learned response that will find people putting America first. This whole effort to bring down a president instead of build up a nation is a frightening thought at a time when all these competitor nations are superpowers now. They're investing galore in higher ed and R&D, and they want to win this race like we wanted to win the space race. And now is not the moment to disinvest and defund. It's the moment to recommit together to the best for this country.
Well, unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but it's a nice connection that you made to the last time that you and I spoke about the space race, actually. So, Congressman Tonko, I want to thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure, Liz.
Very nice, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean